Good evening, I'm Josh Skidmore. Tonight we continue our coverage of the largest attack on our city's police force in over a decade. Several members of Metro's finest are dead, and the person responsible for these murders has methods that resemble that of one of the most notorious serial killers of our generation, in the Jigsaw Killer. Monica Lansbury has more on the story tonight, as we want to warn our viewers in advance. This is graphic footage, and what you're about to see is deeply disturbing. So viewer discretion is advised as we further look into the killer who police are referring to as the organ donor.
It's a nightmare that this city is all too familiar with. While John Kramer, aka the Jigsaw Killer, may be dead, his work still lives on with a new copycat serial killer. In just the span of 3 days, 8 members of the Metro Police have been found dead. Tonight, we look back at the victims of these deadly attacks and reveal the man the police claim to be responsible. It began the night of the 4th of July with the first victim, 39-year-old police veteran Marv Bouswick. Bouswick's body was discovered by police at southbound subway tracks towards Stewart's Point. Police say Bouswick was hung over the train tracks by his tongue and would eventually be hit by the 3 a.m. train passing through. These images you are seeing on your screen were provided by video production news photographer James Bell. But it seemed that this killer had more plans for the Metropolitan Police Force. The next morning, the killer left a message for Detective Ezekiel Banks. VPN News has also provided us with the following message.
Hello, Detective Banks. I'm here to help reform the Metro Police, to remind them of their oath to the people of this city. One officer from your station refused to be reformed. He will not be the last to play my game.
But the games were far from over. Police then discovered the body of a second victim at the Nesbitt Bread Factory, 56-year-old Detective Ian Fitch. Fitch was placed in a game in which he was forced to remove his fingers in a metal-like finger trap in order to escape from being electrocuted. This marked the second police officer targeted by this mysterious Jigsaw Copycat, leaving investigators to the ultimate conclusion. This new killer was targeting only members of the Metropolitan Police Force. The killer would continue to leave behind mysterious videos, spiral symbols, and even used his own puppet, similar to that of John Kramer's. But this time, instead of the familiar Jigsaw puppet, he would use a marionette pig doll dressed in a police officer's uniform.
Salvation was offered, but it was declined. And if you're going to point fingers, you should start by pointing them at yourselves. Until you come clean, many more will die.
The killer would also send police the badge numbers of his victims along with their mutilated body parts. Because of this brutal tactic, police would later nickname the Jigsaw Copycat Killer the organ donor. Earlier this week, our cameras caught up with author Timothy Blake, whose background in studying the works of John Kramer provided more insight on this new Jigsaw Copycat Killer.
Well, I, for one, am not surprised by this, and to be honest, this is not the first time someone had tried to take on the mantle of John Kramer, but what makes this copycat killer so unique is he seems to have his own agenda while using John Kramer's work frame. In my latest book, I touched on the spiral symbol and the meaning behind it. It is the evolution of change within one's very soul and progress within the person themselves. It's essentially being reborn, and maybe that's what the organ donor killer has in mind for our police force themselves.
On July 7th, the organ donor would continue to make his presence felt after a third body was discovered at Constantine's butcher shop. This time, the victim was skin alive post-mortem, and the evidence on the location led them to believe that the victim was the partner of Detective Banks, William Shank.
Hello, Detective Shank. I want to play a game.
Later that afternoon, tragedy struck once more, but this time from inside the police station. South Metro Police Captain, 47-year-old Angie Garza, was also killed by another one of the organ donor's deadly games. Her body was discovered in the police evidence locker. Police aren't releasing the full details of how she was killed, but it was heavily implied that boiling wax was involved. As police continued to look for suspects, the organ donor struck again. At 4:32 p.m., a 911 call was placed to the Metro PD stating to be coming from the old Dawson soap factory on Madigan Lane, and there was a gunman opening fire on anyone there. A SWAT team was dispatched and police arrived on the scene. And while the details are still unclear as to what events transpired, we can confirm that 2 bodies were discovered on the scene: a former discharged police officer, 53-year-old Pete Dunleavy, and former Metro Police Chief, 69-year-old Marcus Banks. Also at the scene was police detective Ezekiel Banks. Banks suffered minor injuries but claimed that he knew the true identity of the organ donor, none other than his rookie partner, 24-year-old William Shank, who also managed to flee from the scene. Shank was believed to be the victim found at Constantine's butcher shop. But after further forensic findings, police can confirm that the body belongs to 48-year-old Benny Wrights. Wrights was arrested multiple times on drug possession charges. Metro Police were able to properly identify his body upon further forensic findings.
Using John Kramer's methods is dangerous. People often forget the reason that John Kramer did what he did was to teach his subjects to appreciate life. If you use his methods in a context whereas you're just targeting police officers only for the sake of revenge, then this killer has no understanding of what John Kramer's true intentions and message were. And if we're being honest, that is very frightening.
But William Shank's games were far from done. Around the same time that afternoon at 4:57 p.m. on July 7th, there was a giant explosion that came near the interrogation room, leaving 5 more people dead and at least 12 others whose injuries range from minor to critical condition. Among the dead police officers, we can confirm that one of them is 37-year-old Police Lieutenant Vic Ortiz. Sources claim that a bomb was discovered after another package was dropped off at the station by courier boy, 22-year-old Isaiah Willis. Willis was also killed in the explosion. Police Commissioner Hart issued the following statement. On behalf of the Metropolitan Police Force, we want to issue condolences to all the victims' families and to our community whom we've failed to protect. We're doing everything in our power to make sure these attacks on our police force will be quickly dealt with and that true justice will be served. And while there are those who believe that the Commissioner's words remain hopeful, there are those like Timothy Blake who believe these attacks will lead to more escalation.
These are dangerous times. John Kramer has left quite an impact even after all these years. We live in a society where anyone who is not in the right frame of mind or even just a little bit unhinged can go and try to recreate these works and totally misinterpret and misuse them. They see his traps and they want to use them just to torture and kill and maim and murder without even giving anybody a chance to survive. I've documented people not only in our city but from all over the world try and mostly fail to emulate Kramer's work. I don't know if this new killer who is attacking our police force and our police officers is even giving them a chance to survive. But after the bomb attack at South Metro Station, it's safe to say that we have a legitimate serial killer on our hands now.
Commissioner Hart would also state that the identity of the organ donor, William Shank, is actually an alias and his real name is Billy Emerson. An APB has been issued for Emerson's arrest, and the Commissioner is encouraging citizens to come forward with any information that can lead to his arrest. To this day, Billy Emerson, aka the organ donor, is still at large, and members of the Metropolitan Police Force must remain cautious as there is a new killer out there who is willing to strike at any time. For the Full Disclosure Report, I'm Monica Lansbury.
As this investigation continues to unfold, we want anybody out there who has information on the lead police arrest of Billy Emerson to please contact the Metropolitan Police Department. Furthermore, as the story unfolds, we will continue to bring you up to date on the accounts and crimes with any hope that a resolution to the horrific events perpetuated by the killer known as the organ donor will be solved. I'm Josh Skidmore. Until next time, So long.
If only you knew the truth.